Hey, if you're a real estate agent, you live by a certain set of rules, right? But what if I told you that a lot of those so-called rules aren't actually rules at all? Today, we're going to tear apart the real estate rulebook and figure out what's myth and what's actually law.
This right here. This sentence is pretty much the core of everything we're talking about today. It's a huge claim, basically saying that a ton of what agents are taught comes from a trade group's policies, not the actual law. So, let's unpack what that really means for you and your business.
And that gets us to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? The massive difference between state law, which, every single licensed agent has to follow, and the policies of a private club. Getting this distinction is the absolute key to understanding the choices you actually have in this industry.
Okay, so that brings us to the first, and honestly probably the biggest myth we need to bust. This idea that you have to be a realtor to sell real estate. Let's get right to the bottom of this. It seems like such a simple question, right? You get your license, you join the association, you pay your dues. It just feels like a mandatory part of the process. I mean, that's what everyone does.
Well, here's the twist. The common belief is, yep, it's the law. But the reality? According to state law, that's a hard no. The requirement to join the National Association of Realtors doesn't come from the government. It's only a thing if your designated broker makes the business decision to join NAR.
And here's exactly how they do it. It's a NAR bylaw called cascading membership. Basically, once the head broker joins, every single agent under them is forced to join and pay up, local, state, and national dues. Let's be clear, this is a business rule made for revenue. It has nothing to do with the legal requirements to practice real estate. Okay, so this whole policy versus law thing, it goes way beyond just membership. It actually impacts the tools you use every single day. So let's talk about the MLS and all those contract forms you depend on.
We all talk about the MLS like it's this one giant official entity, this single database in the sky. But is that actually what it is?
Not even close. The reality is there are hundreds of different separate MLS systems all across the country, and most of them are run by local realtor associations. So how does this all work for the consumer? It's pretty simple, actually. You, the agent, list a house on whatever your local MLS is. That MLS then automatically shoots that information out. It syndicates it. And where does it go? Straight to the big websites where buyers are actually looking. Zillow, Homes.com, Realtor.com, you name it.
And this is the part that really matters. The person sitting on their couch, scrolling through listings, has no idea and frankly doesn't care which of the hundreds of MLS systems that listing came from. They just see the house. What this means is that an agent's ability to get a listing seen isn't tied to one specific magical MLS.
All right, let's move on to the next big tool, your contracts. We call them state-approved forms all the time. The name itself makes it sound like they come directly from the state legislature, right? But do they?
Well, the answer is, once again, no. State governments are not in the business of writing contract templates. The forms we all use are actually created by private groups, the state realtor associations, private lawyers, the MLS providers, or sometimes even your own brokerage to manage their risk. The bottom line? Not a single one of them is an official government document. So, if the association isn't the government and the forms aren't from the state, it kind of begs the question, who is actually in charge here? Let's clear up the real chain of command in this industry. This table right here lays it all out, plain and simple. First, you've got the State Real Estate Commission. They handle actual law and your license. That applies to everybody with a license. Then there's your broker. They're in charge of your conduct and making sure you're compliant. That applies to you and your office mates. And NAR? They govern their code of ethics and their own internal policies, which apply only to their members. See? 3 totally separate lanes of authority.
Let's just say this as plainly as possible, because it's that important. NAR is a private trade group. It polices its own members based on its own rules. It does not regulate the real estate industry. That job belongs to the state. Period.
Which brings us to the big one, the recent NAR settlement that's causing so much confusion. Here's what you need to know boiled down. The settlement changed NAR's internal policies. It did not create new state or federal laws for all agents. That means the new rules, they're only binding on NAR members. If you're not a member, you are not bound by them. So, if membership isn't a legal must-have, what's the alternative? Let's take a look at a different way to structure a brokerage, one that operates completely outside of the Realtors Association system. So here's how this model works. First off, it's 100% compliant with state law, which is the only thing that legally matters. There are no forced association dues, no politics. Agents get full access to the MLS they want by just paying the MLS directly. And the big one, they operate completely free from NAR-specific rules and restrictions, including all those new settlement changes.
And hey, this isn't just some theory. This is happening in the real world. Brokerages like Merge Realty and Easy Realty are already operating on this exact model. They're proving that it's a totally viable, compliant, and successful way to do business.
Look, after we've debunked the myths about membership, the MLS, the forms, and who's in charge, it all really boils down to this one simple but really powerful idea. As an agent, the system you work in is a business choice. It's not a legal mandate. You have options.
And so, I'll leave you with one last question to chew on. Take a hard look at your own career, your own brokerage, and the rules you follow every single day. Are they really built on the foundation of state law, the stuff that governs everyone? Or are they built on decades of old habits and association policies? The answer might just change the way you look at your entire profession.